Employees in the tax collection bureau seemed very busy. However, their boss was playing game. His eyes were tired, his fingers kept clicking. Sung-hee called his boss a few times to solve the problem. The manager was drawing on the book. Baek Sung-il heard Cheon Sung-hee after she tried to call him a few times. She told him to go to Choi Bong-gil's shop for a check immediately. The section leader ordered everyone to get there right away. As soon as arriving at the shop, Baek Sung-il loudly asked if Do Bong-gil was there. The shop's director answered him with a roar. Sung-il lives in a normal family with his mother, wife, and children. He was working as a manager of the tax collection bureau. He didn't love his job. His life was also very hard. After work, he had to hustle in the midst of a press to get home by subway. He woke up at 7 a.m. He faced many kinds of people when he collected the taxes, days after days, months after months. He traveled by subway to get home after 7 p.m. When he came home, his daughter was sleeping. His wife is sleeping on the sofa next to the heap of bills. He covered his wife a blanket and picked a few paper notes for breakfast. The next morning, he had black sesame noodles with his boss. The boss, who was wearing a thick pair of glasses, kept reminding Sung-il that their target was to collect the tax of 182 billion won this year. Sung-il said sorry to him as his section had collected a total tax of 100 billion won. They needed to collect 82 billion more. He couldn't enjoy his breakfast to the utmost. When his boss finished his breakfast, Sung-il had to begin to work and dropped his breakfast. Baek Sung-il asked Sung-hee who had the biggest tax liability. Sung-hee gave him the records of a man named Ma Jin-suk who had a local tax liability of 520 million won and a national tax liability of 52 billion won. He was in the blacklist, though he was prohibited from leaving the country. He didn't react to it when his credit card was deactivated. His address on the records was in Wando province. In reality, he was living in a luxury apartment worth 15 billion. Sung-il and his co-workers drove to see Ma Jin-suk. Jin-suk called his wife to notice her that the investigators were coming to their home. He told her to hide all the valuable things in their home. Jin-suk's staff didn't allow the investigators to get in. They began to fight. Sung-hee grabbed a chance to storm into Ma Jin-suk's home. Jin-suk's wife finally opened the door after a while that Sung-hee kept ringing the bell. Sung-hee read out loud her husband's tax liabilities, but she didn't care, because she wasn't related to it. Sung-il and his co-workers came to check on the home. With 8 years of experience, Sung-il could easily found the valuable things in their home. They also collected enough the gold and cash. At the same time, Jin-suk arrived at his home. He was angry when his wife didn't pick up the phone. She threw his phone at a precious vase. Sung-il introduced themselves as the investigators of the tax collection bureau. He asked Jin-suk to work in conjunction with them. Jin-suk said they had no right to investigate him at night. When the maid was about to serve the tax officers with water, Jin-suk said that was an expensive type of water. He asked why she dared to serve them before him, the master of the home. The tax officers felt so sorry for the maid. Jin-suk picked up the seal and spoke with swank. You guys are just the same as the maid who only cared about money. Then he threw money at Cheon Sung-hee. Sung-il couldn't help it. How dare a tax evader like you brag about your assets? Jin-suk grew cross when Baek Sung-il said so. He transferred his villa to his mother. This luxury apartment was under his wife's name. He wondered what right did they have to collect his gold and cash. What a shameless man, couldn't control himself. Sung-il went bang at Jin-suk. He gave Jin-suk a punch when he dared to shove Sung-hee to the ground. His expression was pained. Sung-il felt a little bit regretful. He couldn't take it back. Sung-il had to face the committee of managers. He kept bowing to them. He saw Cheon Gap-soo, mayor of CO1. Gap-soo asked why Sung-il dared to use violence despite his 8 years of experience. Sung-il bowed and apologized. Gap-soo asked to see An Tae-wook, director of tax collection bureau. Gap-soo put on his suit and asked Sung-il to get his job done well, then required An to write and submit a disciplinary report. Sung-il returned to his desk. Looking at the photo of 3, he had a sip of water to calm himself down. He was too sad to answer Sung-hee's question. She wanted to take part of responsibilities, as she felt very sorry when he was disciplined alone. Sung-il went home in silence. He walked with his daughter. They happily chatted with each other. A car passing by at a fast speed that splashed water over Sung-il and his daughter. It was none other than Jin-suk. He gave them money as if it could solve everything. Jin-suk insulted them with money. Sung-il didn't take Jin-suk's dirty money. Jin-suk mocked at Sung-il. You can't even afford a car to take your daughter home after school. Then he drove his car away. At night, Sung-il couldn't sleep. He told his wife that he wanted to buy a car, with her closing eyes. His wife asked if he was picking a quarrel with her. He wanted to punch each other. He couldn't get it out of his head, so he woke up and searched for the cars that he could afford. However, his balance wasn't enough to buy a wheel. The next morning, someone called Sung-il and said he wanted to sell his car. Everything seemed so fine, his balance was enough to buy. Sung-il asked for his co-worker's opinion. They told him to check it out in person. You need to be careful. Sung-il went to the parking lot to see the seller, then he came to the bank to transfer money to the seller. He was fooled by a swindler. After this, Sung-il would be more careful. The swindler withdrew money from the bank and kept them in his bag. He mocked at Sung-il for being fooled at such an age. Sung-il felt so helpless. Yang Jong-do was a professional swindler. He was released from jail a while ago. In the 1997, when people always cared about the glossy appearance, people thought you were a Gangnam boss if you carried an Hermes and drove a Mercedes, which caused chances for swindlers like Jong-do. At the age of 10, he made money with his risk. When he reached 20, he had his handsomeness and lived as a swindler at his 30s. As for him, swindle was very simple. Because people let themselves to be fooled. As soon as he got out of jail, he could beguile someone out of his car. Driving the car, he got back to work. With people's personal information and his skill, he could get over so many people. Getting in a coffee shop with 2 phones, his balance kept jumping without a sign of stop. Sung-il felt miserable when he was fooled by a young guy. He threw some changes of money. Yet, he still picked them up as he had no money left. Standing on the balcony facing the parking lot, Sung-il felt depressed. Jong-do asked him if he had a lighter. Sung-il shook his head and left. Sung-il went for a drink with his detective friend, Jae-sung. Jae-sung wanted Sung-il to help him catch the crook, and of course Sung-il agreed. Jong-do was visiting his father, who didn't speak anything to him. He spoke alone until his father was taken out of the room. His sad face made Jong-do feel the blue. Jae-sung asked to see Jong-do. The detective told Jong-do that he wanted to catch a crook. If we forgive the criminals for their reasons, there'll be more criminals on earth. Jong-do might get what he meant. If Jong-do was found guilty of fraud, Jae-sung would put him in jail again. The detective hoped Jong-do would get married. Not to be put in jail, Sung-il was still down in the dump. He kept complaining and sighing after being conned out of his savings. Director Park kept begging Sung-il to help him get a tax reduction. When Sung-il was being bothered by Director Park, Choi Cheo-woo, former representative of Woohyang Group, asked Sung-il out for a meal. He kept telling Sung-il about the different kinds of ants. Choi emphasized that Sung-il was just a worker ant like the others. They went to a fancy restaurant. As soon as they arrived, Sung-il saw Ma Jin-suk. Choi Cheo-woo held Sung-il back when he was about to leave. Jin-suk wanted to make peace with Sung-il. Jin-suk didn't brag about his money that time. Choi Cheo-woo didn't want Sung-il to be fired. Jin-suk said Sung-il couldn't lose his job. Your daughter gotta go to college. Jin-suk gave Sung-il a car key and a vehicle registration document. Sung-il remembered when Jin-suk offended him. Choi Cheo-woo suggested Sung-il to help him and director and support Jin-suk. Ma Jin-suk seemed to be the queen ant that Cheo-woo talked about. You must have gave birth to many ants, huh? Cheo-woo reminded Sung-il of weighing his words. Sung-il was an elite man who didn't want to get involved into an illegal affair. He stood up and left the restaurant. Choi Cheo-woo ran after him. Choi asked what he was doing. Sung-il asked Choi back. According to Choi Cheo-woo, he was just helping his friend. As for Sung-il, Jin-suk was a bad guy who didn't pay a penny for the business taxes. Sung-il wouldn't help someone like him. Cheo-woo told Sung-il to suffer it for 30 minutes. Sung-il agreed to get back. How do I cover his tax liabilities? Choi told Sung-il to pay Jin-suk's tax liabilities with the taxes collected from the poor. Because they were very amenable, Sung-il couldn't believe that Cheo-woo was such a kind of person, who mercilessly drained the poor. That wasn't Sung-il's duty. Before Sung-il left, he told Choi Cheo-woo that Cheo-woo had no right to decide the fate of the poor. Sung-il received a call. He and Officer Park came to the office of a gang. When they came, the gang warmly welcomed them. After that, Sung-il came to the market. A guy led him through a slaughterhouse. Sung-il got scared when they slaughtered the pigs. They were sharpening the knives. Finally, he found Jang Hak-ju and introduced himself as a police officer to ask for the crook's information. Hak-ju posed a question and Sung-il nicely answered him. Hak-ju burst out laughing as he figured out that Sung-il wasn't an officer. There was no police officer who would use honorifics obediently and politely. Sung-il was simply polite to them. Hak-ju said he wouldn't listen to someone who claimed unduly. Hak-ju ordered his brothers to put Sung-il on the weight as if he wanted to insult Sung-il. Sung-il pushed them away. He asked Hak-ju to be polite when he was still nice. This was the first time someone lectured Jang Hak-ju. He spoke in an ironical voice. Sung-il took off his glasses and decided to give them a lesson, showing them who he was. After getting information of the crook, Sung-il bragged to Officer Park about his action earlier. he said he defeated 30 guys in the slaughterhouse. Park smiled and told Sung-il a secret. His section was working with the Credit Information Center to investigate the mobile phone sellers who sold the users' personal data. Each file of personal data worth 50,000 won, the CIC near there was straighten out the problem with the phone sellers. When searching through their den, they found a strange file from the drawer of head of CIC named Young-sik in Sangmun-dong. The file as the list of employees working at the taxation department was sent to a prison. Ma Jin-suk was also in the list. Did the crook consider himself the modern Robin Hood? At the cafe shop, Jong-do remembered his inmate's words. He wanted to give Choi Cheo-woo a lesson because Choi was such a jerk. Jong-do was observing the target from afar. Next, he went to a luxury store to buy a suit and a tie. He looked like a young CEO. No one could tell he was just a swindler. He made a call while walking like a successful, busy businessman. At the company, Choi bossed around. He yelled at his employee, threw the papers away, and required her to pick them up. He asked the staff to falsify the Director Choi's tax receipt, reducing it to 500,000 won. However, Director Choi didn't spend money on falsifying the tax receipt, which had a limit. If she wasn't careful enough to take a tax receipt of 500,000 won, the tax agency would come. Cheo-woo said he would deal with them. He began to speak harsh words with her. The poor girl was treated like a worker ant working for a queen ant. Jong-do went to see Cheo-woo. He introduced himself as Go Jin-woon, who was investigator of the taxation department. Cheo-woo asked why he came to see him. Jong-do directly asked Cheo-woo, "Have you recently faked tax receipt and evaded taxes?" He even gave a specific evidence. Sang Jin-suk, founder of Sungshin Express, evaded taxes. You helped Dr. Go Kong-in divided the payment tax into his employees' salaries. You even helped Jin-suk transferred his property to his family to evade taxes. How did he know everything that Cheo-woo did? At that time, Cheo-woo received a message that confirmed Go Jin-woon a tax officer. Cheo-woo lowered his voice and insisted on the officer. He said how hard his life was. He was just a thirsty cat and needed to find a source of water for the other cats too. Choi Cheo-woo got what he meant and said he was touched. He promised to transfer money to the tax officer. Jong-do only needed to count the money. Detective Park told Sung-il that he found the crook. Park gave Sung-il the address of Jong-do. Sung-il set off immediately to get there. At the same time, Jong-do went to the lobby. They bumped into each other like destiny. Sung-il remembered they bumped into each other before. He realized the swindler and ran after him. Jong-do ran very quickly. Sung-il couldn't catch up with him. He got into a car and drove away. Park arrived in his car and they chased after Jong-do. Jong-do's driving skill was good too. He could overrun the other cars on the streets, which made a veteran like Detective Park. Jong-do took a chance to switch the car. Yet, Sung-il figured it out. "I've been waiting for you, racing for a while." Jong-do was surrounded by police cars, no way out. He decided to risk it. However, he was under arrest. At the police station, Park asked why Jong-do swindled people in the list. He even mistook between Section 1 and Section 3. Sung-il. Jong-do said people in the list were bad. A bad guy wanted to defraud the wrongdoers. Did it mean Jong-do was a good guy? The answer was no. Jong-do showed a pitiful face. "You was released just a week ago. If you're caught in prison again, you'll probably have to stay there for such a long time. What a shame when a handsome like you had to go to prison." Jong-do wanted to make a deal. He was sure that he would help Sung-il collect a tax of 6 billion won from Ma Jin-suk as long as they didn't put him in jail again. The next morning, Section 1 Sung-il called on to spread rumor about Section 3 Sung-il. Sung-hee told Sung-il wondered if he made such a loud noise. A rumor spread that he collected a big sum of money and misused it. His co-worker said he could do everything for money. Everyone in the office was speaking behind him. Only Sung-hee believed that Sung-il wouldn't do something wrong like that. Someone accused Sung-il of misappropriation and it was Section 1. Sung-il picked up the phone. The guy who was put in jail before Jong-do could defraud him. Sung-il found it funny. On asked to see Sung-il. Instead of checking if the accusation was true, On believed that Sung-il misappropriated it. He even summoned a disciplinary committee to fire Sung-il, even though Sung-il claimed that he didn't do it. On still didn't buy into him. On asked Sung-il to apologize to Jin-suk. Once he obeyed, he would escape punishment. They were helping each other out. Sung-il's former worker was also framed in the same way. The ending of a worker ant isn't happy. So far, Sung-il had been working for such a decadent system. Sung-il visited a few families to collect the taxes. The poor lived a tough life, yet they had to pay different types of taxes instead of the rich. Therefore, he made a decision that changed his life. Sung-il went to see Jong-do and helped him swindle Jin-suk out of 6 billion won, the number of the taxes he evaded. Jong-do was released in a condition that he had to gull Jin-suk out of his money. He thought he was just collecting the tax, not to swindle. Tax policy for developing countries. Everyone had to pay taxes. Jong-do nodded his head. The next morning, Sung-il went to work and the reporters wanted to interview him. The interviewer was none other than Jong-do. He put on a suit and asked Sung-il to get out. Sung-il told Jong-do to let him know in advance next time. On the way, what a high fee. Jong-do drove Sung-il to the slaughterhouse. He saw Hak-ju again. Hak-ju faked hundreds of phones and ATMs under people's names. Once the police caught them, their business would be screwed. Hak-ju was different. He was very creative and high EQ. His EQ was okay but IQ was low. In another way, he was pretty stupid. Hak-ju and Sung-il already knew each other. Next, Jong-do took Sung-il to see Young Ja-wang, who creates hundreds of phishing websites. However, he looked like a debt collector or a butcher than an IT engineer. It was true that we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. He had a high technical ability, and his nickname was Keyboard. After that, they went to see Mi-ju, who was a top golf player. Women always have an advantage over men. Any hero could hardly resist the temptation of beauty. Mi-ju was quite rude to Sung-il when they met for the first time. Jong-do said she was a good person, yet, she was wounded in her affections. The last one to see was No Bang-sil, who was a tea expert. As soon as they arrived, they saw a guy was dragging away. They got scared. Jong-do gave Bang-sil an offer. They asked her to join them to stage a play, which would bring her back to her youth. Bang-sil was a veteran. As Jong-do was still so young, she didn't want to work with him. Jong-do said a few things to make Bang-sil thought that he knew the man she also knew. She made a call to Mr. Kim to confirm it. Mr. Kim himself confirmed that Jong-do saved Chairman Wang's life. After Sung-il met all the ones who could help, he returned to the office. Sung-hee came to tell him that she wanted to work with him as long as possible. She wanted to close Ma Jin-suk's case, which would help Sung-il keep his position. He sadly told her that it wasn't worth protecting an useless manager like him. If she wanted to give it up, she would fool herself again. Sung-il left when he finished his words. Mi-ju went to find Hak-ju. Ban-sil and Ja-wang were also there. Jong-do asked them to gather around there. The plan to gull Jin-suk out of 6 billion began. Once the mission was accomplished, they each would get 6 million. Bang-sil said it was just a small amount to her, so that she didn't want to join. Jong-do asked if she would get 6 billion won. All of them couldn't believe their ears. Bang-sil immediately agreed when she heard the number, or else she would lose a chance to earn money. Mi-ju taught Sung-il how to swindle. First, he called the target and announced his mother's accident. However, the target hung up the phone when Sung-il spoke just a few words. Next, Jong-do took Sung-il to a coffee shop and analyzed all the situations. He could tell by looking at the lipstick color, fashion style, smile, and job. Sung-il had to remember everything in his head. Next, he sat next to Ja-wang to see him code an illegal website. After that, he followed Hak-ju to see how he laid as a protest in the middle of the street. Though it was quite painful, it was the most effective. Diligent Sung-il practiced everything he was taught after work. It was hard for a sincere man like him to fool people. He failed miserably on the first day of practice. After a few times he got slapped when he failed the trick. He successfully flirted with a girl. Though she wasn't that pretty, it was still a good result. But is it any more distorted? He was trying to reach Sung-il on the phone. Along the way, she saw Sung-il was walking and chatting with Jong-do. While Sung-il was still sleeping, Jong-do asked him to get to the warehouse. Sung-il drove his wife's car there. Sung-hee followed after Sung-il. When everyone gathered, Jong-do summarized about Ma Jin-suk. He owned 18 bars and 4 nightclubs in Gangnam. However, those bars and clubs weren't under his name. Every 3 months, he changed their names. Of the nightclub every 3 months, he was keeping the progressive tax that a nightclub owner had to pay. He already evaded 5 billion of tax. Those who faked credit cards to pay less taxes were unrelated to him. Hak-ju spied on Jin-suk and found that he worked really hard. At 7:00 a.m., he woke up, had breakfast, and went to work. He didn't use a smartphone, so Ja-wang couldn't hack it. However, Jin-suk loved golf betting. He won 7 out of 10 gambles. More importantly, Jin-suk didn't like to drink or have sexual relations with prostitutes if he didn't evade taxes and play the bully. He would have been God won't give you everything you want. Jo Sang-jin helped Jin-suk evade taxes. No Deokji managed the real estate on behalf of Jin-suk. Mr. No knew when they should invest in a land lot, and when the greenbelt was removed, Jin-suk entered the contract to raise the ratio of forest, which helped him save 2 billion in real estate transfer tax. That was why they couldn't wheedle Jin-suk out of his real estate. First of all, they had to win over No to their side. Jong-do assigned each member with a task. Sung-il didn't realize that Sung-hee was following after him, until when she went into his den. Sung-hee called his name. she said he looked good. Sung-hee knew Mi-ju, she told him that he was being fooled. Everyone else in the room was swindlers. Sung-il told her everything in a corner outside of the room. They looked so tense when Sung-hee came. Sung-hee reminded him that Jong-do was a swindler and told him to stay away from them. Sung-il knew, however, they were helping him this time. It was hard to convince her because Sung-il was betting on it. She asked him to think of his family. His wife was working so hard. Finishing her words, she left. She remembered how Jong-do defrauded her. He said he would never dated a poor girl like her. Jong-do was the bane of her life for such a long time. Returning at his home, he looked at the photos of himself and Sung-hee, then put them away. The next morning, Sung-hee didn't go to work, so Sung-il told Jong-do to take an action today. Mi-ju disguised himself as a polite and thoughtful secretary. Ja-won was spying on No's bank account. He kept charging No's money. No was shaken up when his account was charged for no reason. Hak-ju posed as a banker to call No. He asked No Deokji to withdraw all the money from the bank. This is how you can reduce the damage. A banker would come to see him and tell him what to do. Jong-do disguised himself as a banker to see No. He asked No if he kept money in another bank. Of course, he did. Jong-do told him to withdraw all of his money or he would lose everything. No trusted the banker, so he didn't bring along his cash. Sung-il drove a car there. He was afraid as it was the first time he did something like that. Sung-hee reported their fraud to the police to stop something bad happened to Sung-il. No withdrew all of his money from the other banks. Jong-do gave No a paper and asked him to sign. Sung-il introduced himself as a police officer who heard that No got fooled by phone fraud. However, No didn't call the police. Sung-il still claimed that someone called him about the phone fraud. Jong-do felt helpless with Sung-il. Sung-il couldn't say that he needed to take No's testimony. He just stood there exchanging words with No. Sung-il slipped his tongue that Jong-do was a financial supervisor. No wondered how he knew when he first saw Jong-do. If Jong-do didn't interfere, Sung-il would ruin the mission. He made an excuse to take No out of there. As soon as they reached the door, Sung-hee told No everything. She said all of them were swindlers, and she already called the police. The police came and took Sung-il and Jong-do to the station. No and Sung-hee were also escorted there. Sung-il felt really sorry when he was arrested for the first time. Everything was darkened. Sung-hee was waiting for Sung-il. She realized that she didn't tell the police her name yet. How could the police know her name? She went inside and Sung-il was no longer there. It was also a play staged by Jong-do. Bang-sil picked up Sung-il and Jong-do by car. When the real police officers came to No's house, Hak-ju opened the door and told them to go away. This first mission was accomplished. Jong-do and Sung-il tried to win No over to their side. No Deokji had no evidences to sue them though. At night, Sung-hee went to see Sung-il. She wanted to talk to him. At a barbecue restaurant, Sung-hee told Sung-il to stop what he was trying to do. He knew it wasn't a good idea to collect the tax from tax evaders, and he got why Sung-hee was acting like that. Why would a civil servant cheat on people? Actually, Sung-hee didn't care about their positions. She just wanted to protect him. It wasn't worth sacrificing his career for Jin-suk. Sung-hee would collect the tax from Ma Jin-suk by herself with a hope that Sung-il would stop, yet, she didn't know that Director of Tax Collection Bureau was helping Ma Jin-suk. Sung-hee still wanted to try to make Jin-suk pay the tax. When she left the restaurant, Jong-do showed up and praised her drinking capacity. He wondered how she could be a civil servant, because she was an art student. Thanks to Jong-do, she changed her mind and lived a practical life. Sung-hee told him that Sung-il was a good man, who was different from Jong-do. That was why she really admired her manager. The following morning at the Tax Collection Bureau, Sung-hee suggested Manager Kang to gather everyone around to handle Ma Jin-suk. Kang No-sung offered a solution to his team. Jong-do also began to carry out his plan. Both sides had their own plan. Who would collect the money first? Sung-hee's team failed because they couldn't even meet Ma Jin-suk, so she decided to see his mother. Jong-do called themselves Squad 38 who were trying to lure Ma Jin-suk to pay for the greenbelt where her building was not allowed, to finish the mission. He needed Bang-sil's help. Ma Jin-suk would buy into her and pay for the greenbelt. Jong-do spread rumor about the land lot to bait Jin-suk. Sung-hee was too silly to believe that she could handle the tax evader. She asked for An Tae-wook's approval of arresting Ma Jin-suk at any time. The previous day, Sung-il told her that An took sides with Ma Jin-suk. Sung-hee was ruining her plan by herself. She couldn't turn the table. Bang-sil and Jong-do went to check on the wasteland. Bang-sil said Mr. Young, a former police officer, came to see her. He asked her a lot about this, so she wanted to drop this scam. When Jong came home, he saw Jae-sung. Jae-sung complimented on Jong-do's house. He heard about Jong-do's good deal on real estate. Jong-do felt uncomfortable when Jae-sung pinched his cheek and reminded him of being alert. Because Jong-doo's father was a police officer who took bribes, Jong-doo went the bad again after being released from jail. Jae-sung even gave Jong-doo a slap. "Be careful with the targets you aimed at, don't let me put you in jail again, I'll keep a close watch on you until you get old." Jae-sung left when he finished what he needed to say. Jong-doo told his squad that Bang-sil wanted to drop, so that they had to have a plan B. The next day, Mi-ju asked for a job at Ma Jin-suk's office. Jawang gave her a remote. This pen was used to control the golf ball. Press once to win above the set point, press twice to win below the set point, press 3 times to win immediately. Mi-ju tested and it worked well. Sung-il wasn't born to play golf. He said the ball was too small to hit. Mi-ju used the remote to help Sung-il win. Jin-suk laughed at Sung-il. "You idiot." This was also what Jong-doo wanted for sure. Jin-suk would mock at Sung-il when he saw Sung-il playing golf. Indeed, Jin-suk bragged that he got rich thanks to evading taxes. Sung-il challenged Jin-suk for a golf match. He even claimed that he would buy a car with Jin-suk's stakes, and then the gamble began. Jin-suk bet 1 million for a hole out, thanks to Mi-ju's help. Sung-il could win Jin-suk easily. Jin-suk grew cross when he lost the game. Turning around, Jin-suk saw Mi-ju was doing something fishy. When he was coming, Mi-ju put the pen in the cup of coke. Finding nothing strange about her, Jin-suk went straight to the toilet. Sung-il and Mi-ju got a cold sweat worrying about it. Sung-il followed Jin-suk to the toilet. He politely invited Jin-suk a meal. Sung-il hoped they could enjoy it together as they already became friends. Jin-suk still considered him an idiot, who would be an idiot in the end. During the meal, Jin-suk didn't have a bite. Sung-il enjoyed it alone. Sung-il kept urging him to eat but he refused all the time. Sung-il got a call during the meal. He picked up the phone and talked about the land lots. That was what Jin-suk cared about it, so he was all ears. Jong-doo urged Sung-il to hang up the phone. When Sung-il returned to the table, Jin-suk was more open to him. Jin-suk asked him for the useful information. Sung-il pretended to keep it from Jin-suk. Jin-suk tried to make him say, "Alright, I'll tell you, you asked me for it." Sung-il acted as an expert in the field. He said they would earn 5 times once they joined together. Jin-suk laughed and said they could never earn such a profit. Then he went out and called his trusted real estate consultant. The slave over No also received a call from Jin-suk. No said a few things to lure Jin-suk to pay. After that, Jin-suk decided to invest in it. The following morning at Jin-suk's office, Jin-suk came to see the mayor of the project. He wanted to see the mayor immediately. He was afraid of the death of the plan. If it was true, there would be no problem even if there was a change. In the car with Jin-suk, Sung-il called Jong-doo to announce their arrival at the real estate, and urged him to get there as soon as possible. Jong-doo called Jawang, however, he was hit on the way there. How unlucky he was. He lost his blood to earn money. In a coma, he recalled the first time he met Sung-hee. Maybe he fell for her at first sight. Jong-doo grabbed the spare key to continue his plan. Sung-il was really anxious. He made an excuse of the nature call to buy some time for his team. He even called Detective Park for help. Back to the car, Jin-suk threatened to end Sung-il's life if he dared to cheat. Sung-il got panicked. There's a good luck in a bad luck. The police stopped Jin-suk's car, giving Jong-doo a chance to outrun. They wanted to check his driving license. After a while, when Jin-suk exchanged words with the police officer, Detective Park arrived and told her that he mistook the license plate. Jin-suk and Jin-suk continued their journey. Jong-doo arrived and set everything up. He raised his voice as if he was a high-ranking leader that scared the employees. Casting a glance around, he already remembered everyone's names. What a good memory. A second later, Jin-suk and Sung-il arrived. Jong-doo loudly asked the staff there about the incoming project. Everyone had to bow before him. Jin-suk was convinced. He even praised Jong-doo for holding the office at such a young age. They came to an empty land. Jong-doo convinced Jin-suk that this land was profitable. As Jin-suk was still considering, Jong-doo had to use a trick. When Jin-suk promised to share 5% of the profit with Sung-il, Jong-doo said he would share 10% with Sung-il if he could introduce someone else. Jong-doo's strength and confidence excited Jin-suk. He could tell the reason why Jong-doo could hold the office at such a young age. Sung-hee still tried to persuade On Tae-wook. He wondered if she was trying so hard for Sung-il. He said the committee of managers decided to suspend Sung-il. Then he asked her out. Sung-hee encountered Kang No-sung. He took her to the rooftop and showed her the info of Jin-suk. He was related to a Bang Pilgyu. Bang Pilgyu gave Jin-suk money to invest in different business for profits. That meant he had to pay Pilgyu back the money. These two people were connected with Choi Cheol-woo, former representative of Woohyang Group, who ran a multi-level selling system and evaded a tax of 100 billion won. As long as Pilgyu was caught, Sung-il would be claimed innocent. Meanwhile, Jong-do successfully gained Jin-suk's confidence. He would look up for the land lot in the land use master plan map. Jawang's mission was to code a website to fool Jin-suk. Sung-ail tried to buy time for Jawang, and Mi-ju arrived at Jin-suk's office first to mess with the map in his computer. Sung-ail invited Jin-suk a lunch to buy more time. During the time, Mi-ju, Jawang and Hak-ju came to Jin-suk's home. Mi-ju and Jawang held the guards back to give Hak-ju a chance to exchange the bookmark of the map in Jin-suk's laptop. Once Hak-ju finished his mission, the other two withdrew. They met each other after the mission and left. Next, they had to find someone to replace Bang-sil as the landowner. It was none other than Hak-ju. He looked totally different when he disguised as a knowledgeable man. Jae-sung was spying on Squad 38. He smiled when they began to act. Sung-ail went to his workplace, collecting his personal stuff as if he wouldn't get back there. He wouldn't lower himself to the committee of the managers. Because he had lived like a coward for too many years, such a life only weakened him. He packed up all his personal belongings and went home. He called Kang No-sung for help. Sung-ail was surprised when Jae-sung was already at his home. He also reminded Jong-do that he already caught his team and was aiming at Jong-do. Once Jin-suk signed on the contract for sale of real estate, he would arrest Jong-do. Jong-do declared a war, that he would have Ma Jin-suk sign the contract the following morning. If Jae-sung kept following him, he would run away. Jae-sung left a handcuff on the table and asked Jong-do to put them on himself. Jong-do called Jin-suk to ask him enter the contract right away. He confidently walked on the streets despite that the police was following him. Then he started to run. Being surrounded by the police, Jong-do thought there was no way out. Bang-sil arrived in time and rescued him. They used 3 exactly the same cars with the same license plate number to fool the police. Jae-sung was suspended before he could arrest Jong-do. It was Jae-sung who was handcuffed. Bang-sil sent her assistant to bail the other 4 out. At that time, Jong-do urged Jin-suk to enter the contract. A minute before he transferred the money, Jin-suk suddenly asked about 5% of profit for Sung-ail. He didn't think that Sung-ail deserved to get it as he did nothing at all. Jin-suk suggested 50% of profit. He would share only 2% of profit with Sung-ail and Jong-do shared the other 3% with him. Sung-ail heard everything. He didn't expect Jin-suk to play dirty like that. Sung-ail sat down and let Jin-suk know that he was fooled. Jong-do took off his glasses and revealed the truth that made Jin-suk mad. It would take him months to earn an amount of 6 billion. Sung-ail had never seen such an expression on Jin-suk's face. He knelt down and begged them to pay him back. At that time, the other members of the team showed themselves. 6 of them waved at Jin-suk. Sung-ail declared that Jin-suk just paid the taxes of 5 billion and 77 million won. He hoped Jin-suk would live a decent life that made his children proud. An was stunned when Jin-suk paid all the taxes. Why did he pay the taxes when An helped him evade? An Tae-wook said Baek Sung-ail was in charge of Ma Jin-suk's case when Gap-soo asked. He was a bulky coward. An didn't tell good things about Sung-ail. He reminded the mayor that Sung-ail punched Jin-suk. The mayor felt distressed when Ma Jin-suk, Bang Pilgyu, and Choi Cheol-woo lost ground. The next tax evasion was done by Bang Pilgyu, aged 58, the former representative of Woohyang Group. He ran an illegal multi-level selling system. Pilgyu was Choi Cheol-woo's second-in-command. When Woohyang Group went bankrupt, Pilgyu owed 49 million and 77 million won in tax. The number was much bigger than Jin-suk's tax liability. Sung-hee dug into Pilgyu to help Sung-ail. Pilgyu transferred all his assets to his children without paying a penny for the tax. He was still living in a villa and enjoying delicacies. The media to make a big deal of this information. Sung-hee would use the media to create a scandal. Under the public pressure, he might pay the tax. Without much ado, Section 3 drove to his home. Sung-hee analyzed his home. They learned about the luxury brands of handbags. It would make it easier for them to collect. Would their plan succeed as expected? They rang the bell but no one opened the door. Sung-hee found a ladder to climb into his home. Section 3 and the reporters stormed into Pilgyu's villa. Pilgyu was waiting for them. He politely asked them what they wanted to eat. Most importantly, he worked in conjunction with the tax officers. He also told the press and reporters why he didn't pay the taxes. He lost his company as everyone thought he was a cheater. He was penniless and unable to pay the taxes. Woohyang Group went bankrupt and he only shared his experiences in trading. He claimed that everything he did was legal, because he refused to bribe the civil servants with 2 million a year. The government dubbed his company an illegal multi-level selling system. He bowed and apologized, then allowed the officers to collect his belongings. The tax officers didn't find valuable belongings there. It was completely different from Sung-hee's imagination. They had tried in vain, which even caused them a problem. Sung-hee found a safe hid behind the door. It was really a safe when they opened the door. Sung-hee asked Pil-gyu to open it. She thought he kept all the cash there. Pil-gyu asked for her name and said he would keep it in mind. When he opened the safe, there was only the memorial photo of his father. When Section 3 left, Pil-gyu asked if Sung-hee went there to collect taxes or play around. Sung-hee replied that she was doing her job. Coming back to the office, Sung-hee heard that Jin-suk paid the tax. On the way finding for Sung-ael, she encountered Jong-do. Sung-hee lashed out at him. She wanted to make Jin-suk to pay in a legal way. If so, her team would be rewarded and Sung-ael could get back to work. Sung-ael might be fired due to Jong-do made Jin-suk pay in an illegal way. They were so different from each other. Jong-do came to Sung-ael's home during dinner. He introduced himself as a Sung-ael's co-worker. During dinner, Sung-ael's daughter gave the cold shoulder to Jong-do. She told him, "You cheater, have your meal, do not strike a conversation with me." After the meal, Sung-ael and Jong-do went out and grabbed a drink together. Jong-do asked whose the death anniversary was. Sung-ael was honest that it was the death anniversary of his wife's brother, also his co-worker. He had lived a tough life after being falsely accused of taking bribes. In the end, he took his own life. If Sung-ael bought into him, he wouldn't have taken his life. It was the consequence of confronting Woo Hyang Group. Woo Hyang's number of tax liabilities was the highest and Ji-min wanted to catch the founder, result in a consequence. The founder still evaded taxes and framed Ji-min. Speaking of Sung-ael's problem, Jong-do wanted to return 6 billion to Jin-suk and ask him to claim Sung-ael's innocence. Sung-ael said it was true that he punched Jin-suk, yet, he didn't take bribes. Sung-ael tried not to be fired. When Pil-gyu heard that Ma Jin-suk paid the taxes, Pil-gyu ordered his secretary to slap him. Jin-suk was conned out of his money and slapped. Karma comes sooner or later. Sung-ael couldn't sleep at night. He went to his lair and his teammates. Jong-do pinned the photos of the tax evades on the board. Squad 38 had new target and ideal for collecting taxes. They would do something good for the country and help the poor from compensating for the tax evaders. Squad 38 experienced new beginnings. They tried every way to make 300 tax evaders to pay. Sung-hee was busy answering the phones as so many people wanted to pay the taxes. 6 members of Squad 38 walked on the streets with joy when they fought for justice. At night, Sung-ael and his teammates enjoyed barbecue together. He didn't know if he was doing something right. He only hoped that his squad wouldn't be caught. If he continued his job and Jong-do wouldn't be caught, they would have many chances to see each other. Sung-ael went to work and encountered An Tae-wook. He still bossed around. An required Sung-ael to put on a suit when facing the disciplinary committee. Sung-ael nodded his head as he didn't have time to argue with An. Everyone looked so sad. Sung-hee was disciplined because she dug into Bang Pil-gyu to help him keep his job. Sung-ael went to see Cheon Gap-soo to speak for her. Only Sung-ael knew Pil-gyu wasn't easy to deal with. He asked Kang No-sung why he let Sung-hee risk. Kang was afraid that Sung-ael would take his own life like Ji-min. He still felt so regretful when he didn't buy into Ji-min. Gap-soo demanded Sung-hee to apologize to Pil-gyu. In return, he wouldn't discipline Sung-ael. Silly Sung-hee agreed. She did everything to help Sung-ael keep his position though. In the car, Sung-hee wanted Sung-ael to collect the taxes in a proper way. Instead of working with the swindlers to reach his goal, Sung-ael promised not to join Jong-do's squad. An came to a cafe shop to find the one who denounced Sung-ael. He was none other than Jong-do. When Sung-ael and Detective Park put Jong-do behind the bar, Jong-do denounced Sung-ael to An to give him a lesson. Jong-do told An that it was just his joke. An couldn't believe that he was fooled by such a young guy. After meeting up with An, Jong-do visited Sa Jae-sung. He repeated what Jae-sung told his father. It was Jong-do who asked No Deok-gi to report about his fraud. Jong-do made a plan to put Jae-sung in jail in the same way Sa did to Jong-do's father. A man came to the bureau to pay tax. However, he insisted on seeing Sung-hee. He smelled like alcohol. Someone was taking photo of Kang holding money. They didn't know who was behind this. Sung-hee and her co-worker caught the stalker first. However, her co-worker got hurt while trying to catch the stalker. Seeing his co-worker was seriously injured, Sung-ael remembered that his senior was framed in the same way. He knew for sure that Pil-gyu was behind this. At that time, Sung-ael received a call from Detective Park. Jin-suk admitted that he beat the Sung-ael's co-worker. He told everything to Sung-ael. Jin-suk blamed Sung-ael for that, as Sung-ael and Jong-do defrauded him. He then had to obey Pil-gyu's order. After Section 3 messed up with Pil-gyu, he framed Kang and the others to take their job. Pil-gyu promised Jin-suk to get him out of jail after just a year once he did what Pil-gyu said. Sung-ael wondered if money was that powerful. Mr. Kang thought of what he would quit his job to stop making more trouble. Mr. Kang wished Sung-il would work there until the age of retirement. Then he left his staff card on the table and packed his belongings. Detective Park told Sung-il that the case was close when someone took all the blame. Sung-il went to find Jong-do and told him about that. Sung-il wanted to crush all the bad guys, so he asked Jong-do for one more mission. Jong-do asked him for 10% of the value. Sung-il agreed to give him whatever he wanted. Jong-do called his teammates for a meeting for the new mission. 10% of 50 billion was a pretty big number. Squad 38 couldn't resist. Pilgyu was talking with Gap-soo in an eatery. He reminded Gap-soo of his betrayal 6 years ago. Jin-suk dared to use his money to pay the taxes. As for Pilgyu, both of them deserved the death. Gap-soo said he was too much with those sickening words. He should know his position because he wasn't Chairman Choi. Squad 38 was digging deeper into Bang Pilgyu at their lair. He had nothing but for a photo. He had a son and a daughter. His son stayed at home and gambled. His daughter took a stroll around the market just a few times a week and went back home. The company under his son's name was an illegal multi-level selling system. They seduced people to get into the debts. Only when they bought the company products or find someone to replace them, the company would clear their debts. They will be forgiven. So there they were making money on people's lives. Bang Pilgyu lost all humanity. Miju entered into a contract at Pilgyu's company. She wanted them to come to her first because she sold a lot of goods. In the beginning of the plan, she could sell 30 to 50 boxes a day. When she could sell over 100 cases, her co-workers had to help her load them to the truck. The products were all dietary supplements, which weren't easy to sell out. As Miju worked so well, the sales manager called Bang's son to talk about her. He couldn't believe that Miju could sell so many products. Miju was going to be at the highest level of the system after just a month. Ho-suk came and saw Miju was loading hundreds of boxes to the truck. Squad 38 gave those dietary supplements to the elderly. Jong-do and Sung-il smiled when they happily put on masks. Sung-hee went to find Mr. Kang. She kept saying sorry to him. Kang smiled and reminded her of their team member who lost his life. He was still alive, so he told her not to feel sorry for him. Jong-do went to the prison to visit his son. He told his father that he already put Jae-sung in jail. After such a long time, his father finally spoke to Jong-do. He didn't want him to do so, since Sung-il was suspended and Mr. Kang quit his job. The whole team was so angry when one of their co-worker lost his life. They had words with each other. Sung-hee felt so bored and went out to find Sung-il. She told him there would be a public investigation tomorrow. He was sure that it wouldn't happen and she didn't need to worry. Sung-hee let him know that the mayor was behind Bang Pilgyu. Sung-il knew it long ago. After taking the office as the deputy director, Miju tried to approach Ho-suk. She invited him dinner and kept flattering him. Ho-suk kept mentioning his wife during the meal. Miju asked him about his sister. However, he barely talked about her. As planned, Miju mentioned Jong-do as her VIP customer. It worked. Ho-suk wanted to see him as soon as possible. The next morning, Ho-suk and Miju went to see her VIP customer. Jong-do organized an event and invited all the high-ranking officials to attend. Jong-do put on a suit. He looked like a real chairman. When he was on the stage, the reporters began to take photos of him. Everyone gave him a big round of applause that convinced Ho-suk that he was a chairman of a leading company. Jong-do cheered and the crowd hailed him. It really looked like a meeting of the multi-level selling system. I'm determined to sell 1 billion packets. Everyone shouted to show their determination that overwhelmed Ho-suk. He naively thought that he would earn a lot from them. Next, they tried to approach Bang Pilgyu's daughter, Bang Mina. They used the antiquities as a bait when she went to an antique shop. No Bangsil played as the seller. No Bangsil excited Bang Mina with her introduction to pottery and porcelain. As Mina was also an expert, she wasn't easy to spend on them. They had to set another trap. Jong-do had a private meeting with Ho-suk. He was trying to lure Ho-suk into the same system. The difference was that Jong-do was running a much bigger system in size. Ho-suk was so greedy when he heard about the business. Ho-suk wanted to invite Jong-do a meal. Hak-ju made up a tight schedule as an excuse for Jong-do to refuse. Ho-suk seemed to be disappointed, so that Jong-do changed his mind. It made Ho-suk believe that Jong-do esteemed him. Sung-il staged a play to fool Mina. He gave her his contact in case she needed his help. She thought he was working for the Department of Cultural Heritage. Sung-il received a call from An. Someone arrived to replace No. An wanted to invite Sung-il a meal. He refused because he would rather do his work than having a meal with such a guy. Tae-wook followed Sung-il. Sung-hee called Miju when she saw Tae-wook following after Sung-il. While whole team hurriedly cleared their lair, Ho-suk was busy talking to his wife. Sung-il arrived and An followed him to their lair. Sung-il stopped when Jong-do gave him a call. Turning around, he saw Jae-sung's subordinate. He took Sung Il to the prison to see Sa. Jae-sung reminded Sung Il of being careful with Jong-do if he didn't want to end up in jail. He told Sung Il that it was Jong-do who caused Sung Il's suspension. It wasn't simple that those were just coincidences as he thought. Jae-sung even knew that they were trying to make Pilgyu pay 50 billion of tax. Do you ever wonder what Jong-do would do to you after the mission is completed? He would be put in jail like him without knowing why. When Sung Il saw Jong-do, he felt so sorry when Jong-do was worried about him. Jae-sung asked Sung Il to help him record Jong-do's confession, which helped him out of jail. At that time, he would put Jong-do in jail. That meant Sung Il had to betray the squad. Sung Il couldn't hurt the one who helped him. Tae-wook asked Sung Hee to tell him everything about Sung Il. He was trying to dig for information. She could save Sung Il and herself if she told him. Sung Hee wanted to see Jong-do. She asked him for a talk. Sung Hee told him that Bang Pilgyu went to see Tae-wook. If the police paid attention to them, it would be very complicated. Jong-do was confident in what he was doing. Sung Hee said he was too subjective without a sense of responsibility. He treated her the same back then. While they were arguing, Jong-do saw Ho-suk and they greeted each other. Ho-suk thought Sung Hee was Jong-do's wife. Sung Hee was clever enough to combine with Jong-do. She talked to him as if she was really his wife. Then she left to make sure they wouldn't be exposed. Bang Pilgyu reminded Tae-wook of Jin-suk's case. Wanted Pilgyu to be careful. He called his son and daughter to remind them. Mr. Bang sighed with relief when they were safe. Jong-do heard as he was with Ho-suk. Ho-suk wanted to invest in Jong-do's company. Jong-do disagreed because he didn't want to break their friendship. Ho-suk felt touched when Jong-do put their friendship above the profit. Jong-do waited until Sung Hee got off work for a talk. He invited her to join a meal with him and Sung Il. Jong-do wanted to apologize to her. It was just an excuse to have a meal with her. Squad 38 was making a plan to it was Sung Il who made the plan. No Bang-sil returned to the antique shop to buy a jawang and Jin-young picked up a cheap antique. They let Mina see them illegally trading it. Mina collected antiques to evade the taxes. Section 3 acted as common as an old shoe in front of her and did everything to earn money. They grabbed a chance to make friends with Mina. Pilgyu appeared when Sung Il was going to approach her. He turned and walked away to save himself. They had to carry out Plan B. On the way home, Sung Il couldn't get what Jae-sung said out of his head. He decided to tell Jong-do about his meeting with Jae-sung, who asked Sung Il to betray Jong-do. Jong-do admitted that Jae-sung was right. As Jong-do's plan after the mission was completed, he knew it was a scam and realized that Choi Cheo-woo was once the media dug into the scam done by Bang's family, and the schemer would be exposed. Mayor Gap-soo deluded the one who evaded the biggest amount of taxes. Along with Baek Sung-il, they could collect all the taxes. It would affect the society. Couldn't believe in her ears. Sung-il kept asking if Jong-do was telling the truth. Sung-il seemed to be in panic. Jong-do laughed and wondered if he thought it was true. Jong-do told Sung-il not to worry. Sung-il was too naive. He knew Jong-do wouldn't betray him. Jong-do said Sung-il only needed to collect 50 billion won from Mina. No need to care about Jae-sung, who once arrested Squad 38. He wouldn't speak something good about Jong-do. Sung-il felt rest assured and left. Jong-do was calling someone to ask them to be more careful as Sung-il just smelled it. Was Jong-do really deluding sincere Sung-il? The next morning, followed after Sung-il. Would figure it out if he changed the destination. Hak-ju staged an accident and laid as a protest in the middle of the street in order to cut him off. Sung-il pretended to bump into Mina and attracted her attention to the box. Sung-il bought her a cup of coffee as an apology. Their plan began. Sung-il told her about his poor and hard childhood. Then he acted like he hated the government for making the poor like him to pay high taxes, so that he had to use antiques for a tax avoidance to feed himself and family. Mina asked where he got those antiques, but he didn't want to tell her. Until when she threatened to call the police that he told her. Sung-il showed her a valuable and rare pottery vase, which wowed an expert like her. He gave it to her as the symbol of their friendship, and he was willing to help whenever she needed. Mina wanted to take this valuable and rare vase. The assessor said it was of great value. She called Sung-il and asked to see him. The whole team felt exhilarated when she were taken. Sung Hee and Jong-do had dinner with Ho-suk and his wife sitting next to him. Ho-suk's wife talked about him with faint praise. She asked what Sung Hee loved about Jong-do. Sung Hee glumly said that she didn't remember after her heart got hurt. After the meal, Ho-suk's wife comforted Sung Hee as she looked quite sad. The marriage of Ho-suk was just a lie. His wife had to flatter Ho-suk up though he ate like a pig. She has had to endure him for all those years because he was rich. Many times, she wanted to tear his mouth. Meanwhile, Jong-do was trying to lure Ho-suk to invest in his business. However, Ho-suk was too stupid to get it. No wonder why he was just a chessman for his father. The following day, Squad 38 gathered around and learned by heart the documents on antiques. Mina and Sung-il went to see Ho-suk and Jong-do. That was a well-prepared coincidence. Jong-do showed Sung-il a couple of Chinese statues and reminded Sung-il to be careful, having a closer look with a magnifier, and said they couldn't be there. These were a great historical relic of the Tang dynasty. They should have been in the museum. Sung-il wanted to brag about his knowledge, yet Ho-suk and Mina only cared about the price. Mina was interested in the antiques valued at 500 million won. Ho-suk shook Jong-do's hand as if Jong-do was the god of good luck. Jong-do claimed that Ho-suk could earn 150 billion from an investment of the half. There weren't many chances to earn such a big amount. Jong-do told Ho-suk not to hesitate. Ho-suk decided to join the business. 30 billion was just a small amount to his family. Sung-il asked Mina for 20 billion. It took him more time because she wasn't as stupid as her brother. Mina took him to the underground hideout, where kept many types of antiques that they had collected for 20 years. She asked him to value each item first, then she would believe and give him money. On's henchman reported the situation to him. He went to section 3 to see if Sung-il was at the office. He helped Sung-il made an excuse. Gapsu told her to ask Sung-il to get to his office when he returned to the office. Miju was talking with Sa Jae-sung. Sa Jae-sung asked her to let Pilgyu know that he would lose 50 billion. Pilgyu could help him get out of jail. If she didn't obey, he would put her in jail instead. He began to threaten her. If you still stick to Jong-do, you'll end up in jail for your whole life. Under Sa Jae-sung's request, Miju went to see Bang's children, and told them everything. When Bang heard about that, he slapped his children. His slap couldn't make them smarter. Bang Pilgyu called On because On had a relationship with the prosecutors. Ho-suk asked Jong-do to come to his home. Miju regretted letting them know the truth. She begged the Bang family to forgive Jong-do. Sung-il was also asked to get there. Bang family was waiting for Jong-do and Sung-il. They grabbed Jong-do by the collar. Jong-do got it when he saw Miju. The handsome guy would be put in jail. Bang family came to the police station as a plaintiff. There was no evidence that Bang Mina took a valuable gift. Jong-do was a VIP customer of Bang Ho-suk's company. Pilgyu had to leave because the police couldn't help. After 48 hours, Sung-il and Jong-do were released. After having noodles, they went their own way to see their target. Was it part of Squad 38's plan? That's right. Sung-il had a talk with Mina. He demanded her to ask her dad to pay the tax liabilities of 50 billion. Mina thought he lost his mind when he was put behind the bar. Sung-il let her know the truth that Miju had stolen the key to the underground hideout. He even mentioned On Tae-wook as his boss, as On was also framing her father. Sung-il just took a step faster. She came to the underground hideout. Everything there was gone. She sat slumped in dejection. Squad 38 used an unexpected trick to fool them all. Mina compromised and called her dad. Sung-il repeated what Pilgyu said 6 years ago and insulted him. He had to pay compensation for the rest of his life to those who got hurt by him, by paying the tax liabilities of 50 billion won. Jong-do went to see Bang Pilgyu's wife and introduced himself as son of Kim Kyung-hee. Pilgyu's wife was stunned when she heard the name. She immediately asked Pilgyu to get home. Bang Pilgyu couldn't believe that Jong-do was Kim Kyung-hee's son. He approached Bang to revenge for his mother, his father and Kang No-sung. Jong-do used Pilgyu way to delude him. Pilgyu recognized Jong-do's intelligence. He could get back the amount of money when Squad 38 used it to pay the tax because he was close with the mayor. Was that true? Jong-do told Sung-il that he didn't want to pay the tax with those money. He had never lied to Sung-il. Jong-do had no intention to fool a sincere man like Sung-il. Pilgyu felt so helpless. It was time for Jong-do to act. He had only a choice to deal with Jong-do if he wanted to get back the money. Jong-do knew he followed Director Kim's order to put his mother in jail. Thus, he required Pilgyu to say sorry. Pilgyu even framed the officer who was in charge of her case, ask for his forgiveness, and other things. It's not time to maintain your dignity. The antiques your daughter kept must be worth 50 billion. Jong-do called No Bang-sil. Mr. Bang doesn't need money. Just carry out the plan. Pilgyu refused to say sorry. He even claimed that he just needed to a call to end Jong-do's life. No Bang-sil came up to a rooftop. Once Jong-do called her, she would drop the cash over the streets. Entire city on Mr. Pin Street. Pilgyu held Jong-do back and said sorry. Jong-do couldn't feel his sincerity. Even when Pilgyu knelt down before him, he still asked No to drop the cash over the streets. He gave the cash to those who really needed. People on the streets were catching the fallen paper money. Sung-il went crazy. He wanted to ask Jong-do about it. He waited at Jong-do's home. Sung-il thought Jong-do ruined his plan. Pilgyu and his children were caught for illegal business and tax evasion. On Tae-wook and Section 1 Baek Sung-il went to the police station. returning to the office, Sung-il didn't get why On was under arrest. Choi Cheol-woo had a tax liability of 100 billion. Choi requested On to handle Section 3 Beck Sung-il and his team. Or else the consequence he had to face would be unforeseen. Jang Hak-ju spied on No Bang-sil. He and Sung-il planned to defeat her. His gang carried along machete to scare people. Hak-ju wanted to talk to her. Why did you betray us? However, Hak-ju's bang failed miserably. They were just the losers. Sung-il went to talk to No Bang-sil. She told him about Ma Jin-suk. She helped when Squad 38 was behind the bar and Jong-do was in danger. Detective Park was also behind this. Sung-il went to the police station to ask Detective Park, but he didn't receive an answer. He gave Park a punch. Then they grabbed a drink together. Park told him about Jong-do's parents. Park was in a team with Jong-do's father and Sa Jae-sung. Jong-do's father was an upright man, so that Park really esteemed him and considered him a respectful senior. Jong-do's mother was framed and put in jail. Pilgyu bribed Jae-sung to turn Jong-do's father a police who took bribes. Jong-do's parents were imprisoned within just a few months. When Jong-do was released from jail, he carefully carried out his plan to stay away from jail. It was Detective Park who helped Jong-do revenge. Park was willing to break the door to revenge for the right man. When Sung-il returned home, his family already slept in sound. Mayor Gap-soo wanted to see him. On the way there, Sung-il remembered when his wife's brother ended his life. He felt so blue when his felt was heartbroken. When the mayor and On Tae-wook came, he wanted to give in his resignation. Sung-il's wife stopped him. Her brother passed away though. She told him to live for his family. Gap-soo grabbed a drink with Sung-il. They confided in each other during a drink. Gap-soo asked if Sung-il wanted to do Ji-min's unfinished piece of work, including the case of Pilgyu and Choi Cheol-woo. Gap-soo said he hated men like Sung-il. They didn't work to fight with the tax evaders. They were fighting with money. The fight only ended when the world no longer needed money. Gap-soo had been working as a mayor for 6 years. It took him 4 years to deal with the wrongdoings of the last mayor. People in his city could live in peace for just over a year. Gap-soo didn't have for time for those which couldn't come into a good result. His ideal was different from Sung-il's. He didn't want Sung-il to end up the same as Ji-min. Sung-il had to continue his life. Meanwhile, Sung-il didn't want to make concessions, or else he would felt very shameful. Gap-soo drank alone and thought of Sung-il's words. Mi-ju told Sung-hee that Jong-do confessed it to her before he was caught. Jong-do didn't approach her for his scam. He really loved Sung-hee. Mi-ju thought Sung-hee should admit her feelings for him. She wasn't sure. She didn't know if she liked him or not. Jong-do paid his father a visit. As being imprisoned for too long, his father no longer had a keen mind. Jong-do would deal with the last target Choi Cheol-woo to complete his revenge. He also asked his father to speak more, and find himself back. After that, he went to find Detective Park. Park helped him get Choi's info, all the details including where he laundered the money. Park reminded Jong-do to be careful, because Choi wasn't easy to deal with. Sung-il went to see Bang Pilgyu in the prison. He lost his position and lived in jail. Pilgyu had harmed so many people, even his staff. They spent all their savings on his company. Pilgyu had caused so many deaths. He should have knelt down and apologized to them all. Pilgyu said Sung-il, who put him behind bar, had no right to talk to him. He took 50 billion won from Pilgyu. When he was released from jail, he would earn double and take the lives of Sung-il and Jong-do. What a jerk. Sung-il. There would be many changes within 6 years. Nothing can be said in advance. Read newspapers every day if you want to earn money when you're freed. Coming back to the office, Sung-il heard that the managers were fired. As soon as she sat down, On asked him for a talk. It took On 10 years to get the position. However, he could lose it in just a day. He didn't know what to say with his wife. If you feel ashamed, you should have lived decently since the beginning. Why was he blaming Sung-il when he lost his job? On Tae-wook thought he lost his job due to the cooperation between Sung-il and Squad 38, but he was wrong. Choi Cheol-woo fired him to save himself. Choi considered people there a threat. You've got the problem. Tae-wook said the officers at Tax Collection Bureau would be fired next. On wanted Sung-il would take 100 billion won from Choi. That was the only way to cut off a connection between Choi and Mayor Gap-soo. Do something for our juniors. Sung-il asked to see Detective Park in the playground. Park was happy when he could handle the tax evaders. Park knew he was disappointed at him and Jong-do. Sung-il didn't do anything wrong. Sung-il said he dared to do everything after he masterminded a huge fraud. Seeing Jong-do from afar, Park advised Sung-il not to make it tough for Jong-do. When Sung-il walked towards Jong-do, he knew he would get a punch, so he picked up a handful of sand and threw at Jong-do. They started fighting like enemies. The passers-by called the police when he saw their fight. They were put behind the bar at the police station again. Therefore, they were kept in the same cell. They had black sesame noodles, and got a blanket for themselves while sleeping. Jong-do gave Pil-gyu a tax book. Pil-gyu had paid 5 billion for the local tax. After sending Pil-gyu to jail, they could reject Choi and the mayor once they proved their connection. Jong-do hoped Sung-ail wouldn't blame Park because Park didn't know what Jong-do was doing. Sung-ail wondered why Jong-do threw the cash instead of paying the tax. Even if he paid the tax, nothing would be solved. Sung-ail was worried when Gap-soo and Cheo-woo wanted to dissolve the tax collection bureau. Sung-ail wanted to take 100 billion won from Cheo-woo and break his connection with Gap-soo. They made peace and shook hands with each other, then asked the police to free them. Squad 38 gathered again. Choi Sang-ju was Choi Cheo-woo's son. He was the head of Samjin Industrial, a weapon company. Samjin Industrial was Cheo-woo's capital. An American company bought Samjin products. Jong-do wanted to interfere with their business. To carry out their plan, they had to go shopping first. Jong-do picked up the clothes for Sung-ail. It took him a while to find a good suit for Sung-ail. Then they headed out to Samjin Industry. There, they discussed a contract valued at 90 billion. Sang-ju didn't buy into them. For this reason, Jong-do planned to put him in jail for a while. While they were discussing a business, the police stormed in and arrested Sang-ju for drug trafficking. 5 years ago, Sang-ju was sued for drug trafficking. When Sang-ju was behind the bar, Sung-ail bailed him out. At that time, he talked about the contract valued at 90 billion. Greedy people couldn't miss the chance to earn such a profit. It's easy to fool people with a huge number of money. Jong-do professed himself as a representative of Samjin Industrial. Kim couldn't reach Sang-ju on the phone as he was caught. Jong-do took the chance to sign the contract on behalf of Sang-ju. The deal was messed up when the representatives couldn't see each other. It was Jong-do who interfered between them. That was a scam valued at 100 billion. After signing the contract, they waited to receive the money. Choi Cheo-woo didn't figure it out. Gap-soo asked Sung-ail for a talk. He wondered if Sung-ail was happy as Choi Cheo-woo didn't have children. Gap-soo scolded Sung-ail for not listening to him. Jong-do had a feud with Choi. Gap-soo let Sung-ail know how wicked Gap-soo was. Both Park and Jong-do were caught. Park was arrested for stealing information, and Jong-do was busted for scamming. Sung-ail would take the stand to accuse Detective Park and Jong-do. Gap-soo wanted Sung-ail to be the same coward like he was, who obeyed his boss. When Sung-ail went to the police station, Jong-do believed that he was the traitor. The police froze on him before he could punch Sung-ail. Sung-ail asked Gap-soo why he tried to save someone whom he wanted to arrest. Gap-soo wanted Sung-ail to owe him and learn how to behave. Sung-ail agreed to do as Gap-soo's wish, as long as he didn't dissolve the tax collection bureau. It was Gap-soo who founded the bureau. During the trial of Jong-do, Sung-ail took the stand to prove Jong-do's crime. He felt sorry when Jong-do was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Sung-ail looked at Jong-do with gnawing of conscience. 2 years later, Sung-hee visited Jong-do. Her father was Mayor Gap-soo. Gap-soo divorced her mother when Sung-hee was a grade schooler. He was still her father though, yet, Sung-hee clearly knew that her father wasn't a good man. She also hoped that Jong-do could live well after being freed. At the bureau, an old man begged Sung-ail to help him reduce the tax. It was beyond Sung-ail's power. His co-worker told him that the old man was the same as Park Sang-ho, who once came there to ask for help. Sung-ail no longer cared about these things. As Gap-soo and Cheo-woo still put a watch on him, he had to be good. Sung-ail was relegated. The new manager disrespected him despite that Sung-ail was older. The old man still waited for Sung-ail. He just quietly passed by without talking to him. Mi-ju tried to ask Squad 38 to help Jong-do. Jong-do sacrificed for them but they refused him. She had to find another way. She let Sung-hee know that no one wanted to help Jong-do out of jail. In the town, people staged a sit-in due to a project of development. The government asked them relocate somewhere else. The poor and small kids had nowhere else to move, instead of helping improve people's life. The government even made it tough for them. The mayor showed himself. He did not answer any interviews. Choi asked a few people to throw eggs at the mayor. Gap-soo was very clever. He didn't go for a hunt by himself. He just waited for the chance. In prison, Jong-do called No Bang-sil and asked her to gather Squad 38. He asked them, who were already wrongdoers, to break the rules. Fraudsters like Squad 38 were fighting the worse. Greedy people. He wanted to show those officials the truth that the right always won, and the despoilers would lose for sure. Mi-ju picked Jong-do up when he was released from jail after 2 years, despite that the conviction for 10 years in prison. Ja-wang and Hak-ju also came. No Bang-sil and Ji-yun joined them. 6 people smiled at each other. They gathered around and began to work. Choi Cheo-woo was the biggest moneylenders in the market. Their interest was so high, he accepted the mortgage assets such as land, housing, and cars in Myeongdong. Choi didn't invest in business with the interest he gained, he used it to run a multi-level selling system. Cha Myong-soo was Choi Cheol-woo's right hand, next target was Choi Sang-jin whom they scammed once, he controlled the purse strings. An Tae-wook became the company's director after losing his title. Squad 38 must be much more careful as An knew the whole squad, they needed Sung-il, they felt something missing when he wasn't there. Sung-il lowered himself in order to fool people at the bureau. There were too many people around him so that he didn't dare to anything until Jong-do was released. Seeing each other again, they smiled and patted each other's shoulders. They could know what the other meant by looking at the eyes. Despite their age gap, they could still get along well with each other. Sung-il would go though with his plan as it wasn't for only one person. Sa Jae-sung went to see Choi when he was freed. He sold Gapsu's secret 5 billion won. It was nothing compared to 100 billion. Choi didn't agree with the deal. Officer Sa left when he failed the deal. No Bang-sil took Chairman Kim to the lair of Squad 38. He was very interested in the members. He pulled Jong-do's ears for not picking him up from the jail this morning. Chairman Kim was impressed with Sung-il. Gapsu went to see Choi to talk about the election. They planned to get the highest votes. Choi Cheol-woo wanted to make Gapsu the mayor. He had prepared everything and Gapsu only needed to do what he said. Jong-do and No Bang-sil taught Sung-il how to ask for Chairman Kim's help. Kim was a very difficult person and hated many things. Sung-il shared with Kim about his plan to collect 100 billion won of tax liabilities from Choi. Kim liked the look of a kind man like Sung-il, so he agreed to help. First of all, he announced to the public that he donated his assets to the poor. It would impress and attract attention of Choi Cheol-woo. That was a way to lure Choi to approach Chairman Kim. After that, Mayor Chun invited Kim a meal. As planned, Kim would go straight to the point that he would support Chun Gap-soo during the election. Chairman Kim directly asked if Gap-soo had money for the election campaign. If he didn't have money, Kim would help without asking for a profit. He declared with his resoluteness. Gap-soo couldn't refuse him. However, Kim was worried about Choi Cheol-woo who might spike their guns. Sung-il told him not to worry, because Jong-do went to find Jong-do and challenged to collect 100 billion won of tax. Choi confidently asked Jong-do not to riffle it out. Jong-do kept pressing Choi Cheol-woo to make him nervous. This was their trap. Squad 38 caused the cancellation of the development project to save Dammy's eatery. It was a noble gesture of Squad 38 for the poor that the authorities didn't protect. The whole squad found it meaningful when Dammy was really happy. Choi got mad and blamed his employees. Choi demanded On to get rid of Jong-do to protect themselves. Back to Squad 38, they were making a plan for the next scam. Sung-il masterminded it. His teammates were surprised at his perfect plan. He seemed to be a professional swindler. Jong-do found one more person to carry out this plan. What a surprise! That was Ma Jin-suk. He wanted to earn a living after getting out of jail. Jin-suk knew Choi very well. He wanted to revenge Choi and take back what belonged to him. When the whole squad agreed, Jong-do let Jin-suk follow the plan. They let Jin-suk meet Choi Cheol-woo again. Jin-suk acted like he still had so many money to bait Choi. He used the development project to trap Cheol-woo. Cheol-woo borrowed money and withdrew his money from the bank. Jin-suk kept creating a chance to meet Cheol-woo and show him his wealthy. Cheol-woo asked Jin-suk how he earned money and Jin-suk happily shared with him. Finally, Choi swallowed the bait. Their next target was Myong-soo, the director of the construction company. Mi-ju approached him at a bar. She pretended to get drunk and let him take her home. Hak-ju acted as her jealous boyfriend and kidnapped Myong-soo. The whole squad scared him. Hak-ju tortured Jawang as an example to make Myong-soo spit. Jawang struggled in pain. They pretended to obey Choi's order to ask Myong-soo about the misappropriating money. Myong-soo said he knew nothing about it. After that, he was also forgiven and released. Poor Jawang. He got bruises for this play. The following days, Choi Cheol-woo lived in fear that someone was spying on him. He tried to find way to misappropriate money without being noticed. On call to tell Choi where Jong-do was in Squad 18's lair. At night, Jong-do went to see Sung-hee and apologized her. Sung-hee forgave him. At the same time, something happened to the squad. Sang-il was surprised when Choi found him there. He asked Jong-do to get back right away to see the uninvited guest. Jong-do said goodbye to Sung-hee and returned. Choi acted in a friendly way when seeing Squad 38. He said he just wanted to greet them. Jong-do offered him a cup of coffee. Choi made an excuse to leave. Jong-do asked why Choi knew where they were. He said that was why Squad 38 couldn't defeat him. Choi already saw their plan to scam him. Looked after exhausting all the plans, Choi and Tae-wook also masterminded a plan to fail Squad 38. Kim Sung-ho asked to see Sung-il and Jong-do at his office. It was An who sold Jong-do out. Detective Park received a fake info, therefore, Kim believed that it was Cheol-woo was behind all of this. Jong-do decided to continue his plan. It didn't matter anymore. At a gathering of Squad 38, Jong-do said there was a traitor among them. They failed 2 years ago because someone revealed their plan to Choi. They were acting again for people of Myeongdong and Sung-hee's help. If they failed this time, it would be shipwrecked. Their failure would hurt so many people, so that they had to stick to the plan if they wanted to protect those people. There would be no plan B or backup plan at all. Let's proceed like that, Sung-ail said. The mission began. It was Hak-ju who betrayed them. 2 years ago, he gave On Tae-wook their plan. What a traitor. He sold his brothers out due to On's sweet words. They had to deal with the traitor first. This time, they let Ma Jin-suk join them. His mission was to meet Choi at the bank. On the way, Jin-suk told Jae-sung about the number he asked for. Jae-sung did nothing, but he asked for 5 billion won. He shocked when Hak-ju went with On Tae-wook. They were spying on Jo Sang-jin. On requested Hak-ju to steal the account book and give it to Choi. Once the mission finished, On told Hak-ju to leave the country. Jin-suk gave Jo Sang-jin an important book. A prosecutor showed up and took them to the police station. They gave Tae-wook the book. As planned, On Tae-wook got the book. Hak-ju admitted to be the traitor. Jong-do thanked him for telling the truth. Hak-ju made a suggestion that they couldn't swindle the targets or exchange the book, and they needed another tactic. They were of even strength. Both sides had their own strategy. Hak-ju gave Jawant the file. Tae-wook was already there before Tae-wook arrived. He beat Jawang and Hak-ju up. Gap-soo wanted to cut off connection with Cheol-woo. 2 years ago, Gap-soo was very angry when Choi fired On, because Gap-soo lured On to fight against Cheol-woo. If it was exposed, the prosecutors would dig into it and their company would be discovered. That meant Choi would lose a valuable source of income. Gap-soo wanted to kick Cheol-woo out of the city, especially his life. Gap-soo didn't want to see Cheol-woo anymore. No Bang-sil went to the hospital to visit Jawang and Hak-soo. She thought they lost their lives. Mi-ju said they were sleeping after feeding themselves to full. There was no danger to their lives. Chairman Kim's assistant asked what Jong-do would do to take Choi down. Sung-ail said their persistence would win. Even though Cheol-woo wasn't easy to deal with, justice would take sides with good people. A good turn is never lost. Sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. Choi sent On to see Chairman Kim and asked him to betray Squad 38. He shouldn't side with the scammers just for old times' sake. Sung-hee let Sung-ail know that Choi Cheol-woo knew Chairman Kim was behind them. No Bang-sil also received a call from Chairman Kim. He wanted to cut off connection with Jong-do. Hearing the news, Jong-do decided to follow his plan. Sung-ail reminded everyone to withdraw if they couldn't find a way. Try not to be caught. Receiving money from Choi, Jae-sung revealed Gap-soo's secret. Bang Pil-gyu took someone's life and faked a suicide. Gap-soo helped Pil-gyu do it. Jae-sung brought in news that worth 5 billion won. He wanted to become a great mayor. How could a great mayor cover up for a criminal? Jae-sung saw Jin-suk, but he didn't give him the money. He bragged that he could send Jin-suk to jail if he wanted. He left after finishing his words. Jin-suk saw the true face of the hateful old man. It wasn't easy for him to keep 10 billion won for himself. Tae-wook wheedled the money out of Chairman Kim. Tae-wook smiled and left when he saw money in his trunk. Money isn't everything, but life is tough without money. Sung-ail made the way for the prosecutor. The prosecutor was given a chance to devote for people. Tae-wook reported it to Gap-soo that Chairman Kim took side with them. He just needed to wait for a little longer. Though Choi knew what happened 8 years ago, he had no evidences. Tae-wook told him not to worry. On the TV, the news spread that Gap-soo took a bribe of 10 billion won for his election campaign. As a result, he would be disqualified from standing for election. Choi Cheol-woo was reported as a gangster who misappropriated money for his personal needs. He bribed police officer Sa Jae-sung was under arrest. With the help of Chairman Kim, they transferred Sa Jae-sung's 10 billion to On Tae-wook. On Tae-wook thought Kim gave him those money. A reporter took photos of their illegal transaction. Sung-ail wondered whom the law took side with. What did the civil servants work for? The prosecutor decided to free Baek Sung-ail. Seeing each other at the police station, Jong-do wished Sung-ail wouldn't lose his job. From then on, they would take their own way and be done with each other. Jong-do asked Sung-ail to pick up his father on behalf of him a year later. Sung-ail agreed and walked out of the police station. Jong-do confronted the prosecutor. He said he transferred Choi Cheol-woo's money to Gap-soo, and he received money from Sa Jae-sung. Gap-soo told Sung-ail the truth about the death of Sung-ail's brother-in-law. Sung-ail knew Pil-gyu took his life and Gap-soo helped cover it up. However, Sung-ail wasn't there to punch Gap-soo, because he had to do something more important. He said Gap-soo once was a cool mayor in his eyes. Finishing his words, he turned and walked away. hearing the thoughts of Sung-ael and Sung-hee. Gap-soo teared up. As for Sung-hee, he was a bad father. In people's eyes, he was a slave of money. He then asked Sung-hee to collect 100 billion won of tax from Choi Cheol-woo. Gap-soo admitted his wrongdoings and list out relevant people. He would withdraw from the election and resign. He would work with the prosecutor during the investigation. Choi Cheol-woo paid 100 billion won of tax. From then on, the number of high-handed people decreased, though they knew there would be someone else like them. When the bamboo is old, its shoots sprout. That didn't mean no one would fight for the right and justice. People inclined to the good, which was the law of nature. Staying with good people will know and learn what to do for the right. The end. See you in the next recap. Please like and subscribe for more interesting series. Goodbye.